truth, cover-ups, lies, and in between, conspiracies, and those who dare to speak the truth. Get ready for a walk on the wild side. Welcome to Parley with your host, Michael Gray.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Parley. I'm Mike Gray, your host, and we have a really great show for you today, and I thought I've seen it all. Just real quick, I've been in the conspiracy business for 20 years, ever since I left high school or thereabouts. It's been 20 years now, and I was always into conspiracies, and I've always been into conspiracy books and read every conspiracy out there. Or so I thought, until I stumbled upon the flat earth theory. And it's weird. I just recently stumbled onto this. You would have thought that, I would have read this in other books, but, no, I was on YouTube and one thing leads to another and I see this flat earth, conspiracy or flat earth documentary and I was like, oh, what's this, And then I immediately thought, oh, Jesus, this is COINTELPRO. This is the government putting out crazy information to make conspiracy theorists look like they're loons. So I clicked on a YouTube video of one of these flat Earth videos, and to my horror, they were making some really good points. So I want to introduce you to Mark Sargent, and it was one of his videos that I saw on YouTube. And he made some really good points, and he's here tonight to share those good points with us. Now, I'm not saying the Earth is flat, okay? Because I don't want to be Baker acted, all right? And I don't want anyone to, come and commit me. But I am saying that these flat Earth people make some really interesting points, and we know that the maps that were shown in high school all our life are not real. They're called the Mercator map. I believe them. Let's get into it. Hey, Mark, you there?
I am here.
Mark, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, terrific. All right. Now, Mark, I'm watching these YouTube videos, okay?
Yeah.
And one of the first things they say is, if a plane takes off, now we're all taught in high school or in school that the Earth is rotating, it takes 24 hours for the Earth to spin, okay? Mm-hmm. We all know that,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the Earth is spinning one way. It's not, okay, it's spinning east, correct? Or
yeah.
That's what they tell us.
At about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Yeah.
Now, but if you think about it, and the guy makes a good point in this video, that if you take off from a plane from New York to L.A.,
mm-hmm.
it's 5,000 miles. It takes 5 hours.
Yeah.
Now, if the Earth is spinning like they say,
yeah,
L.A. should be coming towards the plane, correct?
Yeah. Again, you can't have it both ways, because the argument from the math geeks and the nerds is.
Now you take it from there, because
Oh, no worries at all.
I'm not as eloquent as you. You tell the audience what I'm talking about.
And it is not one of my favorite arguments, but it does have merit. Because initially, I set out to debunk this thing, about 9 months ago. I was just going to smush it into the ground and be done with it. But to your argument there, if the Earth is spinning, and we're not going to talk about east-west. We'll just say, with the spin or against the spin.
Yes.
If the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles of the equator, let's say up towards North America, it's spinning at, say, 700 miles an hour or whatever it is. If you're flying with the spin, that's fine. You're going one direction, and people say, well, you're not going extra fast because, gravity's got you locked down. Well, if you're flying the opposite direction against the spin, then gravity can't also have you locked down at the same time. And so, there's a little bit of fudge factor because you've got the jet stream, which always moves west to east. But yeah, it's an interesting argument. The one though that I like more than that one is the centrifugal force argument, which is using the equator. So if the equator's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, you're standing on the equator, you're moving 1,000 miles an hour. However, if you're standing right on top of the North Pole, you're spinning at 0 miles an hour. So, if you're on a merry-go-round, every kid knows this. It's like, look, if you're on the outside of the merry-go-round, it's trying to throw you off, right? You're literally trying to be thrown off the merry-go-round. But if you're standing in the very center of the merry-go-round, you could stay there all day. Nothing happens. You just might get dizzy. So the question is, if 100-pound weight weighs 100 pounds at the North Pole, then shouldn't it weigh a little bit less when you get down to the equator? I mean, we're not talking, I'm not saying it's 20 pounds less, but it's got to be a little less. If centrifugal force is in effect, 1,000 miles an hour is a lot of speed. And nobody talks about it. It's not one of my favorite arguments because, people start breaking out the science books and they've had, a whole lot of time to prepare. My points, go way, way beyond that. So.
Right.
So what do you want to dig into first?
Okay. Now, they made a good point also on the video.
Mm-hmm.
They made an also good point on the video where the guy in New Mexico, he was in that balloon, high air balloon.
Oh, the Red Bull guy.
Yeah, and he went up like 80,000 feet. It took him 3.5 hours in New Mexico, okay?
Yep.
Somewhere in the center of New Mexico.
Yeah, I saw it.
It takes him 3.5 hours. This is on YouTube. It even made the news.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, Mark.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Because the phone's ringing here. He went up 80,000 feet. It took him 3.5 hours to go up 80,000 feet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it was even higher than that, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm here. We're going to have to edit this because, hold on.
Okay. No worries.
We'll edit this out.
Okay.
Cindy, we could edit that part out? Cindy?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Don't worry about
All
it.
right. The phone was ringing.
Oh, no worries.
So the guy goes up 80,000 square feet. It takes him 80,000, what is it, 80,000 feet?
Yeah, at least. I personally think he hit 100,000 feet, but it doesn't really matter. The point was He went way the heck up there.
Right, 3.5 hours. Now, if the Earth is spinning like they say, he should have landed, when he jumped out, he should have landed somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Yet he lands 70 kilometers from where he took off.
Yeah. And again, it's you're going, and Grant, he was in a balloon, but you're either going with the spin or against the spin. You can't have it both ways, and it's an interesting little globe puzzle that most people just don't look at.
What about the difference between those maps, like the Mercator map and the Peterson map?
The Mercator map is what everybody's been seeing. So when they pull the map over the blackboard when going in school, that's the Mercator map, and it doesn't accurately show what the continents look like in respect to each other, and that's been known for a long time. It was really designed for a shipping, sort of promote the European thing. So like Greenland in the Mercator map looks like it's almost as big as Africa, even though Africa is technically 17 times larger than Greenland.
Right. Yeah.
And South America is huge compared to like Europe, but it looks like they're about the same size.
Yeah.
So they've been trying to introduce in schools what's known as the Gall-Peters map. And in fact, there was a TV little segment on it. I think it was The West Wing or something like that. There was a TV show that kind of introducing it to the president, trying to get it to, because they're trying to push it in schools. It's like, look, even the maps we're looking at, forget about the flat round thing for a second. Even the maps you're looking at are completely wrong geographically. The countries in the southern hemisphere are far, far larger than their counterparts in the north, and it's just something that we take for granted. And that's the perfect example of when you're raised in it, when you go through school and you are shown these things. Why wouldn't you believe them? You're going to take them at face value. Why would anybody lie about something like that?
What's funny is I remember when I was a kid, looking through like biblical type books or ancient books.
Yeah.
Ancients believed that the world was flat and surrounded by mountains. Okay.
Yep.
It was like the entire world that they knew was surrounded by an entire ring of a mountain range.
Yep.
And then in the middle was water or an ocean, and then the continents were somewhere in the middle there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, wow, you know.
Yeah, and that model was, you know, and that's what we believed for the longest time, and which is kind of, you know, where I got started was for, you know, if our civilization, you know, our records go pretty continuously back about 5,000 years, for the first 4,500 years, that's what we thought. You know, every religion, you know, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, they all had their versions of the same thing. The earth was round, it was flat, or flat-ish, you know, not a perfect flat, which I'll get into later, and that it was surrounded by what was known as, at least in the Christian Bible, the firmament, and that's in Genesis, and a solid structure, and which would make sense because if it is a flat enclosed system, you know, like a snow globe, I hate to use that reference because it's too simple, but like a snow globe or a Truman Show reference, you're gonna cover it with something, and that's what they believed, absolutely. I have gotten some.
What's beyond the firmament then?
Well, that's the point of contention. And I've gotten into it with several other flat earthers, you know, because, there's some, people ask me all the time, you know, they say, is there space? You know, is there stars and everything? And it's like, well, yeah, you could have stars in space, but the design that I seemed to run into as I was trying to debunk this thing and as I was building it myself was there was so much design efficiency that you wouldn't need it. Meaning, if you're going to build a small system like this, you don't have to put in, you know, real stars and planets out at, you know, millions of light years away. You could just put them, you know, it's a giant, beautiful, simulated painting that's just up there. Now, as far as what's outside of it, if it was me, I'd put more of these.
It's interesting. It's interesting that we learn that when they made the first nuclear bomb, when they tested it at Trinity,
yeah,
they said, you know, there's a good possibility this detonation could blow out the atmosphere and the entire atmosphere that we breathe could be sucked out into space.
Yeah, but they did it anyway.
And they did it anyway. And then in the 50s, you know, Project Argus, I believe, they detonated three separate nuclear bombs at the edge of space or in the atmosphere. Yeah, absolutely. And which proved pretty much that they couldn't blow through whatever they were trying to blow through anyway. And those tests, which is in part of my clues, I think it was the first one, the Flat Earth Guide, talked about how they started testing in 1958, again, for no apparent reason, you know, just started firing nuclear weapons straight up. And they kept firing. The only two countries that could do it was the United States and Russia, and they did it for 4 years. And they both quit at the same time in 1962. And that's when both countries decided to start their space program, which is dubious at best. Oh yeah. If they faked the moon landings, which I think they did, you start to wonder if even there's photos or pictures or film when they were on the Vulcan Space Lab. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
See the guy running, going around in circles, and that could have been in a Boeing 747.
They're simulated. They don't use a 747. I think they use a 737. It's called officially, and people can look this up. It's called the Vomit Comet. Because, when the human stomach is exposed to zero gravity, even in a simulation, it's like a roller coaster ride. You feel nauseous and queasy. But yeah, after the moon landing, and honestly, if you guys, and if anybody's researched, this, because the internet has just shot that thing full of holes. If the moon landing was absolutely a sham, and it was, I have no doubt in my mind, then what can you trust? What can you believe? I mean, you want to have some fun. Look at the International Space Station interior videos that's been put up recently. Look at the ISS hoax, videos.
Yeah, it's all fake. It's all fake.
Oh yeah, those are embarrassing. They're so horrible. I was thinking about that last night.
What's funny is there's not even any. When you look at it, people will point out, how come there's no, like in a submarine, you have doors that can be sealed in case there's a puncture.
Sure.
Well, in the IS space station, it's like a long tube, and if God forbid there's a puncture in the hull,
Yeah, they're
the whole
screwed.
they're screwed. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
they can't. The simulation, the plane, and don't think for a coincidence that for a second that it's a coincidence that the all those interior shots are just about the same width as a commercial airliner. Don't think for a second that that's a coincidence. They could make that thing as wide as they wanted, and there's no room that is bigger, that is wider than a commercial airliner. And
you know what's interesting is that it makes so much sense that they passed a law. I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, that Congress passed a law that everything had to be digitized, or no more analog transmission. Everything had to be digital.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you could fake, with using green screen. If you wanted to fake something, it was so much easier to, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You could, everything
fake it in real time. I'm saying.
Yep. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it made it way, way easier. But the entire NASA program, from my point of view, and you may have seen it on my the stuff I put out there, and it's going to sound again way the heck out there, but sooner or later, the big thing was, up until the 60s, there was still no way to prove that we were on a globe. Everything was just speculated. If for 20 generations we've been passing around globes in classrooms, but there was no pictures. All you had was some math and the occasional ship. But so eventually they had to create, they had to create the space program to take the picture, right? But the picture wasn't real, so the space program wasn't real. But you had to build the rockets just to give, because you can't hand the picture out to people because they're going to say, oh, who took it? So you have to create the space program just to simulate the fact that it was done, and it was very clever, and I give them kudos for it. But.
Well, do you know what they said that Robert Strange McNamara? Do you know that the Saturn V rockets that they built?
Yeah.
He ordered, when he was the last thing he did after Kennedy died, his last act of service or order, he had all the Saturn V tool rocket dies, all the castings, in order to make those. He had them all destroyed.
That doesn't.
And people were scratching their heads saying, "What do you mean? It costs millions or billions of dollars to develop that, to make those tools?
Yeah.
The casting dies or whatever."
Yeah.
We can't build those Saturn V's anymore because he ordered them destroyed.
Why? Yeah, bury the evidence. Oh, well, heck, you want to go down that road? Look up, when all the telemetry tapes were lost a couple of years ago. That NASA says, oh yeah, we misplaced literally thousands, basically all the Apollo mission telemetry tapes. Just lost them.
Yeah.
They're gone. And all our
historic, yeah.
Yeah, and all our subcontractors lost them too. I was going, really? Everybody lost everything that could possibly, that you never want people to look at, and you lost them. That's great.
Well, when Ron Howard was making Apollo 13, he asked NASA for the videos or the film, and they said we don't have them. They're lost. It's like, what?
Yeah, again, I don't know if you watched any of the Clues, but Clue 1, the empty theater, I am aghast that I am the only person to put this video out there on YouTube, which is, look, we've had 50 years of movies since the moon missions, and no one's actually done a moon mission movie. How does that even happen? And people going, oh no, there's got to be moon missions. No, there wasn't. You had The Right Stuff in 1983. Which was just an astronaut training program movie, and then Apollo 13, which was, the whole thing took place in a capsule. That was one of the cheapest productions you could ever do, and that was it. No one ever made a moon movie, and you can't. You can't do it. They're not going to be allowed to do it because it's too close. It hits too close to home. Because if a Hollywood studio makes the movie and it's so spot on that you can't tell the difference from the original mission footage, then what are you looking at? And they don't even want to risk it because it would raise too many eyebrows. Plus, you'd let Hollywood in on, it's like, hey, there's so many people on the production teams in Hollywood, they'd start figuring it out as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, well, I just wanted to get back to, it's funny we were talking about the Bible. and it says that God separated the waters from the waters, the firmament.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to Credo Mutwa? He's a Zulu shaman.
I have not, but go ahead.
Well, he talks about what the Earth was like before the flood, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying that there was actually a vapor canopy around the planet, like that you couldn't see the sun back before the flood, that there was a mist up high, and that it perpetually drizzled and rained.
Interesting.
And and that's what gave the Earth, that's why the Earth was so, at that time, before the flood, was very pristine, and it was almost like perpetual spring. And if you think about it, if there was a cloud mist, it would keep all it would regulate the temperatures. Like you wouldn't have the extreme heat from the sun.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? When there's a cloud cover over, it's the temperatures are better. It's not as because the cloud cover keeps the warmth.
Yeah.
Especially at night. So, and then the vapor canopy came down and flooded everything.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and to that effect, in the flat model, if you look and there's several out there, if we want to look at a pretty good one, look at the it's easy to find online, the flat and stationary Earth. It's a pretty decent model, from Orlando Ferguson. But to that effect, if in the flat model, the outer edge has to, is raised somewhat. And, if you look at the Antarctica thing, Antarctica is a steep climb up to 2 miles, and if it's all the way around.
That's right. They say that the ice is 2 miles high.
It's 2 miles high, and it stays 2 miles high. It plateaus out. The whole thing's 2 miles high. So if you look at that, well, yeah, let's say you would raise the water table 2 miles. Then what do you got? Then you got something like, I don't know, the Great Flood. Because the argument is, well, if there's an edge, the water's going to fall off, ships are going to fall off the edge, blah, blah, blah. Well, not if you raise, the outer edge to 2 miles, then you got the whole thing covered. And nobody's going anywhere. It's like a shallow kid's pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the firmament or whatever is like a plasma, like the fourth state of matter, or
whatever it appears to be, and there's some disagreements again in the circles that I'm in, which I have not been in for that long. It appears to be impenetrable. If it is plasma, it seems to be something that you can't get past. Which, of course, you could argue it's like, hey, the Van Allen radiation belts were announced in 1959, which again not coincidentally the same year they sealed off Antarctica forever. It could be plasma. It could be, it could be a form of hard water. It could be a new element that's not even on our table. But whatever it is, no one's getting through it. It appears to be extremely durable. Judging by the nuclear shots that went up, and I don't want to get into the debate about nuclear fission right now, but the second and third shots were 3.8 megaton. And,
right.
That's a big load. Those are big hits, especially for 1959, 1960. Back when nukes were extremely hard to come by and very expensive.
It kind of makes you wonder about the story of the Tower of Babel.
Oh yeah, which I put in clue number 8. I didn't mention it by name, of course, because I want people to figure it out on their own. But and this is for your churchgoers out there. The Tower of Babel story, that's from Genesis. Doesn't work on a globe model. It absolutely makes no sense. That's a kid's argument from Sunday school, and that is, well, where was this tower going? Is this tower going anywhere? But on a flat model, on an enclosed model, it makes perfect sense. Because there's a goal. We're talking about an older civilization, way older than us, apparently very technologically advanced, that figured out the firmament, figured out what was going on, and said, you know what, we're gonna bridge this thing, and we're gonna go straight to the top. And how that story ended, where it was the languages were divided and everything was scattered. And but yeah, the Tower of Babel is an excellent story from the flat model, but nobody thinks about it. Or if your Bible stuff, that story about the guy that was slain an army by himself, that he asked God to keep the sun in the sky for an extra day. So he could do it in the daylight, and people, scholars would be like, "Oh, well, that makes no sense because you'd have to stop the rotation of the Earth." But on a flat model, all you have to do is hit pause. That's it. The sun can just stay in the right place, and you can keep there 1 day, 2 day a week. Makes no difference because everything is simulated, for lack of a better word.
And you got to wonder, okay, is God a good guy or a bad guy?
Well, you see a lot of both in this world. I mean, honestly, I don't want to get too much into philosophical discussions, but without us, this planet's a pretty nice place. It's a pretty great place. We're the ones that seem to be doing the damage to each other. And everything here seems to be, on an inspirational scale. There's a lot of very beautiful things, and it seemed, because people said, well, is it a prison? Is it jail? I was going, well, if it is, it's a very comfortable jail, and two, the jail walls have been hidden. So, if it's confinement, then 99.99% of the people don't know there's confinement. I may end up changing that, but we'll find out. So.
Well, what's funny is, I listen to Jay. I don't know. Do you know who Jay Weidner is? Jay Weidner or Jay Weidner?
Sounds familiar, but go ahead.
I listen to him a lot. Okay.
Okay.
And he talks about the tall whites or the. What he basically talks about is that every 12,000 or every 26,000 years, like this Earth has a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And what he was saying is there were human beings who they didn't want to die.
Yeah.
And either maybe they went underground or went to Mars.
Yeah.
And let's say they either went underground or went to Mars or whatever.
I'll vote for underground, but go ahead.
Yeah, underground. Okay. So they went underground, they survived the catastrophe, and they kept the knowledge. And when they reemerged, they saw that human beings had survived.
Yeah.
But now everything starts at zero. They were primitive. They had no knowledge.
Yeah.
So they wanted to basically get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And they went about to recreate civilization to have humans build civilization, to build the technology, to make nuclear bombs, to make CERN.
And hearts.
Yes, right.
To try to see if a civilization could help them break out.
Yes. Right.
Interesting. That's an interesting.
Now, whether they're demons or devils or jinn or other humans,
yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, that's not bad, and maybe the reason why we've gone through, because it's obvious, to many people that we're obviously not the first civilization that's been in what I call the enclosure, because how many cities do you have to find underneath the ocean before you figure out it's like, well, we may be version 3 or version 4, but yeah, wouldn't that be interesting if there was a group of beings that were just using every civilization that came through here to see if they could come up with a way to get out. That's an intriguing story. I kind of like it, and doesn't really clash.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I just don't. When you read about Jehovah, I don't think Jehovah's a very nice person.
Well, no. Old Testament stuff is very grim. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. It's not a happy time. Absolutely. Right. Which is part of the reason I think New Testament kind of has been the focus as
the gentle Jesus. I like the gentle Jesus better than the Jehovah,
Yeah.
But I don't know how Christians wrap their head around they saying it's the same person.
I was raised, born again Christian, and I've kind of fallen away as I've learned about the other religions, but I try not to speculate.
Right. I kind of see all religions as really a trap.
Well, I think faith is a good thing. Spirituality is a good thing.
Yeah, love thy neighbor, and the golden rule.
Sure, absolutely.
Kind of yeah, that's all well, but I just see if the Vatican represents Jesus Christ, then I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, men in power, the power corrupts. It's so very easily, especially if you have a lot of people that have good intentions, underneath you. You're saying, we want to, do good things. But the people at the top, there's ulterior motives, and that tends to snowball, and, then you get things like, the Dark Ages and the Crusades and the Inquisition, and
right.
Gets out of hand.
So where do you think? Like I said, man, this is one of the weirdest. I think you even called it in your last interview that I listened to,
Yeah.
you called it the runt of the conspiracies.
Oh, it's worse that, and that was the only word I could
It is,
throw
man, because I've been posting stuff and saying, I emailed a bunch of my friends who think I'm nuts already.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, I know you all think I'm crazy, but watch this video. These people make some really good points,
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, I got physically embarrassed every time I even looked at the Flat Earth folder. It was because, for those out there that aren't big into conspiracies, it's like, it is the worst. It is the most ridiculous, ludicrous conspiracy there is. But the thing is, you don't know why. It's because it's the only, it's going to sound too simple, but it's the only conspiracy we debunk to children. And you stick and it's easy. You just stick a globe in a classroom and you let them sit in the classroom until they graduate from school. And that's it. That's all it takes. And even the word flat earth gets this visceral response from people. And so, yeah, when I initially, started digging into it, I was absolutely going to debunk it. That was, and just say, okay, I'm going to look at it. I'm just going to, map it out from A to Z. And as soon as I run into something, if I run into a problem at letter F, I'm just going to throw this thing out and say, that's it. I'm done. And it absolutely turned on me. Everything I looked at, it got worse and worse. And then when I started doing the timeline, it got worse. And then when I started doing the backstory, eventually I had to ask the question, I had to go back to because I had a little globe, that you probably saw in one of my interviews. I was going, when exactly did it become a globe? That was the big thing. It's like, okay, so it was flat for 4,500 years. And then 500 years ago, they said, well, it's probably a globe. And, they say probably because there was literally no way to prove it. And
here's the thing. What is the point of conning everyone that when we went from it's flat to it's a globe, what was the powers that be's purpose to con into thinking it's a globe?
To hide the fence. Which I covered in video 5, I think, status quo. And it's as easy as this. If you don't hide the borders, then eventually people are going to see the borders. And then it's a control thing. You're going to lose control of them because they're going to follow that. It's an enclosure thing. So when people will, they'll just start asking questions. But more than that, it's let's call it what it is. It's proof of design. And up until now, and I'll talk about this actually in my next video that I'm doing, is up until now, look, religion is still just faith. Yeah, it's very, very strong faith, and lots of people have it, but it's still just faith. You don't have a supernatural artifact to grab onto. And imagine if there was one. And so, years and years ago, it was put into play that, let's make it to where nobody even looks for the borders. Because remember, if the world's flat, then sooner or later as technology progresses, people are going to get to a point where they're going to start making journeys and pilgrimages on their own to get there. But if it's round, then you're telling them, you can go around all day long and you're never going to find anything. And it worked. It absolutely worked. But it also backfired, in my opinion, because, and I learned this as I was going along, that even the elite, and you can pick whatever group you want. There was no doubt in my mind that yes, royalty from years ago, the Illuminati or the Masonic or whatever group you pick, it doesn't really matter. I have no doubt that they knew, but because they couldn't see it either, as it was passed down from generation to generation, it just became, it just kind of, started transforming into myth and legend. So let's say you were a German prince, right? And you're shown this map and it's a flat world. And, it's like, well, your father and your grandfather and his father before him, we're passing this on. And it's like, yeah, grandpa, I heard the story. It's flat, but what am I going to do? I'm not going to see it. So it doesn't make any difference. And finally, once we started doing steel-hulled ships, and really when the internal combustion engine came on is when they really could start looking for it. They started looking for it. So, they did North Pole in 1926 with Admiral Byrd, legendary in the field. And then in 1920, so once the North Pole was done, they sent him down to the South Pole. And from 1926 through 1954, excuse me, he started looking for it. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. That's what they were doing. But I don't think they even told him. Or maybe
Well,
they told him.
it's interesting. Operation High Jump, right, was
Oh, yeah, 1946.
1946, where he goes down there with was it an aircraft carrier and
A full-blown carrier group.
Yeah.
5,000 men.
And he
13
actually says
ships.
we were repelled, okay?
Yeah.
And this was in the textbooks up until, what, the 1960s?
Yeah. Yeah, and then nobody talked about it anymore. You know,
Yeah.
it was,
And he goes, well, we went down there and we were repelled. Repelled by who? So, now, was it the Nazis? Because there's a lot of people who think that the Nazis went to Antarctica.
It could have been, but my argument is this: it very well could have been. You know, it's fine. You know, if the rest of the remaining Nazi Navy decided to go down there, and you got to remember, we weren't doing explorations down there in the early 40s because of the World War, but it's very possible that Germany was doing expeditions down there, and you know, it's possibly they found something. You know, there's some speculation, but that part didn't bother me because after Operation High Jump, whatever was down there, they took care of it. It was done. There was no doubt in my mind because the expeditions just kept firing off after that, and they kept.
You want to know something funny? I hate to interrupt you.
No. Go ahead.
Okay, you know that there's outposts in Antarctica, okay, where the Dutch are there and there's like scientists.
Yeah.
And there's a big plaque, okay. I was watching the show. This was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a big plaque and it says this plaque is dedicated to all the people that came here for science. And it says to watch the enemy. And the guy looks at the camera and goes, What enemy are they talking about?
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
And that was before I knew about Nazis and, them going to Antarctica.
Yeah.
That always struck me as strange, like, to monitor the enemy. What enemy are they talking about,
Yeah, that's all been stricken from the history books. Whatever happened, all they say is there was Operation High Jump. That's a wiki thing. It's easy to find. There's pictures, and they went down there, full blown carrier group. He was the fleet commander, Admiral Byrd, and something, and then something happened, but that's it. And it's like, and then they just erased it. Now it's like, oh, they just went down there for peaceful intentions. It's like, really, you send a full, an entire aircraft carrier group to the, to Antarctica, and that's it. That's all you're going to say. But
right.
that was
for an expedition.
Exactly. And then
send the military force. The only reason why you send the military force is because you think you're going to have military resistance. You're going to fight something.
Exactly. But again, whatever they took care of it because the expeditions kept going, and then I think I had 2 more after that, and then. In 1954, which, the famous Byrd interview, which we were so lucky to get, it's on YouTube. Please look it up, not just on my channel, but you can look at the full-blown interview. Mine's chopped a little bit to get rid of the fluffy stuff they were asking him. But, in that 54 interview, he says, oh yeah, Antarctica is a treasure trove. He goes, there's an entire mountain range made out of coal. There's oil, there's minerals, there's uranium, there's everything. And at that point, what I kind of pieced together was the authority, and when I say authority, I mean, I'm just lumping up, governments, very, very rich people, and royalty. But the authority, I think, at that point said, well, maybe there isn't a firmament. Maybe there is no edge. Maybe there is no border. So let's just start harvesting Antarctica for resources. And everyone was down there. All the survivors from World War II. You had Russia, you had Britain. United States, Chile, Argentina, I think New Zealand, Australia. Everyone was down there. And then they go down for Operation Deep Freeze in 1955. And, that was going to run from 1955 to 1956. And then something happened. And whatever spooked them spooked everybody so completely that it was, one day it was, we're gonna be in Antarctica for the next 100 years. And then they see it, and it's like, everybody back in the boats. We are leaving right now. And it was, it's that ultimate, it's that Hollywood gag. It's like you see something, we're totally motivated in one direction, and then you see something that is so jaw-dropping. It's like, we are out of here. And,
maybe we are the Lilliputians, and we don't even know it.
Oh, could have been, and yeah, there's speculation, speculation. Okay, what do you see? But there's certain things, that we would take care of. So, Godzilla could have been on the ice and we would have taken care of it, sooner or later. You could have run into a race of giants, absolutely, could have been, part of that. But, I went with the most obvious thing to me, which was, look, they found the outer edge. And it's one of those hidden things. So, immediately, because of what happened right afterwards, which was, so 1956, Operation Deep Freeze probably ended, the second they saw whatever it was. And then immediately, Russia and America, who were both on the ice at the same time, decided to ramp up their rocket program right then and there. 1957, rocket program. And by 1958, they were both firing nukes straight up. Kept hammering, for the next 4 years. 1959, the thing that, again, I'm going to touch on it in the next video, which again, 99% of people don't know. 1959, they closed Antarctica permanently. They closed the entire continent. Millions and millions of square miles of energy-rich resources. Everything you could ever want. There's no indigenous population. There's no animal life. There's no plant life, as far as you know. And they closed the whole thing down, locked it down, and put a treaty in place to where every country that became technologically substantial decided, they said, no, you got to sign this treaty. You're never going to Antarctica. And it's still in place to this day. And you know how treaties go in industrialized nations. It's like, were you kidding?
Everyone's oddly honoring it.
Yeah, and the oil companies. I mean, look, British Petroleum, Shell, all the mineral companies, Alcoa, any of the mining companies. You're telling me that these guys can't get in there? What are you talking about? They can get in anywhere. They can get into a national park, but they can't get in there. And it's one of those super interesting secrets that people still don't talk about. And then it just got weirder from there. So
it makes you wonder. Yeah,
go ahead.
If we're really in a prison.
Again, if it's a prison, it's a very well designed one, and it's designed with so many natural negative reinforcements. So, like in a flat model, the oceans just get colder as you go further out. And then you run into icebergs, which discourage shipping, and then you run into a continent which goes 2 miles up. Then you've got altitude sickness. And, and then you've got, however much land between you and whatever else is out there.
Right.
And again, that creates an illusion of choice, which is, well, you're making the decision to turn around on your own. No different than, climbing a mountain. If you climb a mountain high enough, you're also going to get altitude sickness. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to head back down. So if it's a prison or a jail, it's a soft one because they're not putting bars in the windows, for lack of a better word.
It's interesting that, if the elite know this, it kind of really makes sense why they believe in transhumanism and they want to transform themselves into almost like these Borgs.
Yeah. These
nanite bodies that can, they're like a living Iron Man kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They believe that they're going to be able to transfer their soul or their mind into these robots and live forever. That's what they believe.
No, I don't doubt it. And really, as far as hiding it goes, of course, it was a natural reaction. Of course, they were going to hide it. It's because the world changes. Even back in 1956 or 1957, if you figure out, where's the top part of the firmament versus the outer part of the firmament, the world changes right away. The world becomes automatically more spiritual. And it doesn't matter what religion you're part of. It immediately becomes, God becomes real. I hate to say this, and the one I'm putting out, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, the clue is called Hiding God. Because I've had so many people send me things, so much scripture sent from all different areas, and it's like, look, yeah, I mean, you're hiding. Let's call it what it is. You're hiding the builder. It's evidence, and your definition of God. That varies, of course, but it's still one.
It's interesting that the founding fathers were, I believe it's called deists or deists. Have you ever heard of this term?
Okay. I haven't. I could look it up though.
Theist or deist, and basically, they believe that the God, the Creator, is some type of architect, and he built the natural world as we know it as a clockwork type of thing, and that he left. or he left, or she left,
Yeah.
or whatever created us left.
Yeah.
And that it is up to them to become gods.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Yeah, and I have looked at some of the Masonic texts as well. I've looked at everything, and yeah, there's an underlying message there that keeps repeating over and over, and they keep hiding it in symbolism. That is, it was built. It was built. It was built. It was designed. It was designed with precision. They talk about the architect and
it's funny that one of their symbolisms is a ladder up to the sky.
Yeah.
And okay, well, where's that ladder going? And then you could see people descending out of a pocket in the sky, like a dimension, like
Sure.
angels going up. Yeah, like Jacob's ladder.
Or the one that's hidden in several of their images is the three pillars that hold up the sky.
And it's interesting that one's called, what is it? Liberty, wisdom, and beauty.
Strength, wisdom, and beauty. SWB.
Right.
Yeah.
And on 9/11, the two towers came down, and they rebuilt the one.
Yeah. There's a lot. Again, this is an idea that is very, very old, and it's everywhere. People say, oh, it's a Christian thing. No, it is not just a Christian thing. There are many texts that mention this. I can't tell you how many people have sent me the Book of Enoch, like I've never read it. Saying, the book, for those of the people who don't know, a book that was not canonized and put into the Bible, but was up for consideration at some point, along with the Testament of Solomon. And, that book, goes into quite a few details on the layout of the world and how things were built. And, I'm sorry, go ahead.
In that book, it talks about the 72 fallen angels.
Yeah.
And Enoch is asking God, hey, get them out of here and take them with you. And God's saying, no, I'm leaving them here. And he's like, no, get them out of here. They're going to create too much trouble. And then Enoch puts them in a box. Yeah. Did you read that part?
I didn't, but I like it.
Enoch puts them in a box and puts them in a cave, supposedly under a lake, and buries them.
Interesting.
Now, it's interesting that in France, there's a place called Loret Chateau.
Okay.
Where there was a priest who would always go up and down the mountainside looking for something.
Yeah.
And supposedly he found something, and he became very wealthy. And, there's a lot of speculation that he found the box that Enoch had buried. And,
really?
And that box was sent to the Vatican. Yeah.
Huh.
And maybe they released those guys. Who knows?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Azamadov is the name. Azamadov? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that one.
I'll send you that link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a guy, he puts out these videos on YouTube, a black child?
No.
Okay.
No.
What's
he talking about?
Okay. He talks about the reason why they have all these satellites up in space or in the upper atmosphere.
Yeah.
And they've created Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they're building these laser-based Earth-based weapons.
Sure.
They're worried they're going to use these weapons against the second coming.
Interesting.
Okay? And they believe that they could use these these Earth-based lasers and the space-based lasers, Star Wars, against an invasion.
Yeah, and if I bought into the satellite thing, I'd go with you on that. However, I will say that you might have a point. Point there because again, not to quote too much, but was the Revelations, and I don't have the verse in front of me. The Revelations quote where it talks about how the civilization on the ground would repel, would attempt to repel, what they called, the second coming, and the angels.
And it says that they would, and he even goes into that saying that people would look for death and they wouldn't find it. And what he's saying is because transhumanism by that time will ever have taken place, and there will be a lot of people that won't be the orgs. And they can't die. and the only way they can die is by a flame, by
Incineration.
incineration. Yeah.
Mm.
So they'd have to melt to die. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty grim.
Because remember, the first thing was a flood, and God said He wouldn't flood the earth again.
Yeah.
That was His promise with the rainbow.
Yeah.
And the second one will be by fire.
Hmm.
The second judgment. That's in the book of Revelation. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And it also says that creatures come out of the what was that river?
Styx?
Yeah. No, not Styx.
Euphrates?
Euphrates River. That
Yeah.
these creatures come out and start eating people. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of that though.
Yeah.
The bottomless pit thing kind of drew me a little bit, but I did.
Also, if CERN is real, okay, and they want to open up another dimension,
Yeah.
just like in the movie Avengers. Did you see the movie Avengers?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, where they let in these creatures from another dimension and they start pouring in.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, CERN has been getting a lot of traction out there. People keep thinking, oh, you're messing with, all sorts of powers. The movie line, powers you have no comprehension of, that sort of stuff.
Right.
For me, if I was designing something like this, I don't know if I would leave the type of household chemicals around that would be able to blow up the house. See what I mean? You would sort of take that into account, because let's put it this way: if super big explosions aren't doing anything, I mean, yes, CERN might have a chance. HARP's been around for a while, and they haven't let anybody in, as far as I know. CERN's got a shot, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not convinced they can actually do anything yet.
Let's hope not.
Yeah,
I hope it fails, but
I'm going to be the optimist on this one.
The amount of money they spent, and for this thing to go through Switzerland and France,
Yeah.
I mean, it's enormous.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, and you may be right. Maybe they are trying to. Maybe that is the ultimate goal. It's like, okay, maybe the goal has been for the last 50 years. Can we, is there a way of breaching this? Which again would that's a natural reaction, of anything. It's like, all right, well, can we get out? So.
Yeah. Wow, this has been a mind blowing. I have to say. I'm not. I'll say this, okay?
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of things they're not telling us, like with the globe. Maybe the Earth is actually bigger than what they're telling us, and we're on top of a bigger globe. Maybe we're at the very tippy top, and there's some kind of dome over it. I mean, that's possible.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't know. All I know is that when you think of the model that they're putting out there, it's incorrect. And if they're willing to fake the moon landing and Sandy Hook and Aurora and God knows what else,
For me, I can summarize it like this, because it made so much sense for me, because, for me, I looked at the moon landing for years, and I had no doubt that there was some huge problems with it. But for me, I had a problem with the motivation. And that was, I came up with a reason. It's like, okay, why do you fake the space program like that? What is in it for you? And I'm thinking, okay, it's national pride, it's USA, go rah rah. But it wasn't that good. I mean, it was good, but it's like, man, that's a lot of money. So when I finally got into it, it made more sense, because it rephrased the question. And that was, more of a statement, really. It's like, look, they didn't want to fake the space program. They had to fake the space program, because if you don't fake it, if you do not militarize and nationalize the space program, then sooner or later you're going to get a private corporation or 2 or 10, and they're going to get together, like they're even trying to do now. But they would have done it a whole lot earlier, and then it's not under your control. And for those people out there that say, oh, what about satellites? It's like, really, you're going to ask me that? It's like, go watch the International Space Station videos. Why would you fake the interior of that? There's nobody up there. So if there's nobody up there, then why? Why are you faking it? It's like, well, because you have to. You have to give the illusion there's people up there. You have to fake that you're sending probes everywhere. Even the Mars rover. Really? That's been running, 5-7 years past its expiration date? No one can explain why. Oh, yeah, the cameras are still running. Nobody's talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But for me, again, I went into this trying to debunk it, which is, to date, and, knock on wood here, knock on wood, that I haven't got any debunkers, but I think it's because I went into this trying to debunk it. So, everything that I put out, I won't put out anything if I can smash it.
Mark,
Yeah.
do you think that the space program was debunked because of the political climate of the day, like the Cold War, Russia against America, and all that stuff, or?
Oh, you mean the American space program?
Yeah.
No,
we had to beat the Russians. They were the first to launch Sputnik, and they've already supposedly sent a probe to the moon.
Well, yeah. No, I think it was a joint effort because remember, for me, they've been in it together. For me, Russia and America have never been at the highest level. I don't think they've been enemies.
Absolutely.
I think they have been secret brothers. People say, oh, the Cold War and, better dead than red and all that crap. It's like, look, these guys have been with us since the beginning. And I won't go in. I know we don't have time for this stuff.
I'll tell you one thing. It was the Rockefellers and Rothschilds that shut down Russia as an economy by turning them communist because they didn't want competition.
Sure.
And that makes total sense.
Yeah. And if our moon mission was successful, you don't think Russia would head to the moon on their own? Oh, well, we're late to the game. We're just not going to go. That's a bunch of crap. Of course they go. That they figured out that we could fake it better than they could. And so they just gave up. And I think other people, I think England knew that it was a fake. Look at that James Bond movie where Sean Connery's running through the Hollywood movie moon set. That was a little nod, to.
It also makes so much sense. Why aren't other governments outing our government? We didn't go, and saying, hey, you guys did that. They're not.
No, they're not. Well, mostly because they're using NASA as a consultant. I mean, look up some fun stuff. Look up Chinese space program bubbles, where absolutely China's faked their entire thing and they did it in an underwater simulator, probably ours. They probably rented it out for the day. There's so many. Everybody at the highest level. Now they may not know exactly why they're doing it, because that's a need to know basis. But they have been told it's like, look, every space program, if it's going to be, it's going to seem legit, is going to be fake. And if you're doing your own private program, don't expect success because we're gonna keep you absolutely under thumb. So, just my take.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's not people. It is not what you think is. Or the argument, and it was. I've said this before. But I'm going to say it again. Tell me how you are living on a globe. Convince me that you're living on a globe without using the word NASA. If you can do that, then you might have something.
And it's so true. If you look at all the pictures of Earth, they're all the same, just about, or composites.
Yeah, the composite images, the one image, and I know we're running out of time, but I got to say this. Look, I completely missed this 15 years ago, where when I was doing a search online for the pictures of the Earth from space, there was literally one shot showing the bottom part of Africa and the entire part of Antarctica. And it was there was no other pictures online. And it was the year 2000. And it just blew my mind. But, at the same time, it's because we're conditioned not to make the leap. What was the first thing I was going to think? Flat Earth? No, of course not. I was going to think that NASA just is way behind in their game. And it's like, well, you guys got to get these images up faster because this stuff's 40 years old. And it's because there was nothing else to send. They don't know how to fake it. It's getting too hard. The internet hive mind picks up details. You can't hide anything on the internet anymore. You can't do it. Which is I'm trying to tell them if they're listening to this right now, look, stop faking stuff. You can't do it.
Well, I was told in a dream 2 nights ago to not touch the subject. So just so you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I should have got into that earlier.
Well,
we're down to 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Why don't you plug your website, not your website, your plug your
videos.
Yeah, how do you get a hold of you and your YouTube videos and the names?
Okay, yeah. It's real easy. You could Google this, or you can just throw it on YouTube. It's Flat Earth Clues. I'm the only one doing them, and you'll see a series of 9 clues and the Flat Earth Guide, which I recommend first. It goes through, there's a playlist. You can go through all of them, and it doesn't take that long. It is in my opinion, not, even though it is the last conspiracy people look at, it is, the mother of all conspiracies. It is so big that the conspiracy itself has been buried to where we are conditioned to laugh at it. And I'm the perfect example. I laughed at this thing for years. I just snicker and say, "Oh, this is a religious thing. This is something else." It is absolutely real. I have no doubt in my mind, and I am going to do everything I can to see if I can find someone out there knows someone who can, because it only takes just a small fragment because it's so fragile. It's a secret that cannot be kept forever because we're living in it. It's not like the other conspiracies where you can bury it, under Groom Lake forever. No one's going to find out. This is
Right.
something that I believe they also have a contingency for. It's like, one day, if enough people find out, well, we'll see what happens there. I would imagine some sort of huge event distraction, but you cannot keep a secret like this forever. It is physically impossible. It's like hiding something from your roommates in the apartment.
I'm sorry. And what's that map again? That Peterson.
The one they're trying to get into schools is the Gall-Peters map.
That is an amazing map.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was looking at that today, and it still blows my mind because we're so conditioned to the Mercator map, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That when you look at the Peterson map, it's like, holy cow, man!
Yeah,
Look at that,
That should be, the gateway to a perception thing for you, because look, they're not lying about that. That's the Gall-Peters map. That's the proportion of what the Earth looks like, and they didn't tell you that for hundreds of years. So if that's wrong, if the map you've been looking at in school's been wrong, then what else is wrong? And right. I'm going all the way and saying, look, the whole world is wrong. They've hidden the world entirely. It's a clever con, but it's worked.
Well, Mark, you've said it all. This has been Parley. Mark, this has been a great interview, despite the phone call interruption that I got. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you very much,
Mark. I want to thank you. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back on CJ Mars Radio. This is Parley. I'm your host, Mike Gray.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Hey, we're back. This is Parley, and I'm Mike Gray, and we're talking to Mark Sargent. Mark, you there?
Yeah, I am here.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, pretty good. Hey, I want to apologize to everyone, first of all, for the glitch at the beginning of the show, and we'll take care of that. There was just a little problem. No big deal. This interview will play again a bunch of times, I'm sure. But we're back with Mark Sargent talking about the Flat Earth conspiracy. And we're going to take some calls here pretty soon. But was there anything else you wanted to get into, Mark?
At the moment, I just released part 11.
Yes, I saw that. I was watching that. once again, plug your YouTube thing. So
Oh
people
yeah,
can go
yeah,
look at it.
absolutely. Flat Earth Clues, although at this point it's gotten so popular, you don't even have to YouTube it. You can just Google it. And as a matter of fact, as of this morning, I overtook just about everyone when it came to, if you type in Flat Earth into YouTube, all my stuff's up there now. But Flat Earth Clues goes over the theory of what the world actually may look like, who's behind it, big timeline as far as how everything was deceived, and it's real great stuff. It's been real fun making it.
Speaking of the space station, right?
Yeah.
Remember Al Gore a while back, a few years ago, said he wanted to have a TV station that pretty much filmed the Earth 24/7.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and you think about it, there aren't any TV stations, or not in the station, any cameras on the space station on the exterior.
No.
That shows not only the Earth, but like that can do a 360. You would think that they would put that. Instead, they always have an astronaut inside the space station with a little camera peeping out a porthole.
Yeah. Yeah, there are no, and I covered this in the clues, there are no exterior panning shots on the space station. Most of the stuff's in the interior, and the production work is just literally atrocious. But that brings up a good point that you said there. It's like there's no TV stations. If there was a 24/7, because you could do it with a satellite easily enough. If satellites were really up there, you could point something to the Earth and run it 24/7 and just be, real time Earth, and people would subscribe. All day long.
And what about a camera with a telescope mounted to it that, you can point it, pay to point it wherever, to go wherever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't even do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's horrible. And as a matter of fact, I got a link for you. I mentioned it briefly in one of my other interviews, but I downloaded it this morning, and that was, did I ever tell you about JAXA, JAXA?
No.
Does that ring any bells to you? That is the Japanese, and people feel free to wiki this, is the Japanese moon exploration program that most people don't know about. It was done several years ago, and they sent HD cameras, on a probe supposedly to circle the moon and come back. But nobody talks about it. Nobody's ever heard of it. And I remember hearing about it because it was live. It was like this little blurb on CNN or something, and then it got buried. But the Japanese have been releasing some of the footage, up on YouTube over the last couple of years. And, you'd think, because, okay, there's your chance, right? You're coming back from the moon with HD cameras. All you have to do is head towards Earth and then just keep,
and film Earth as you're filming it.
Filming Earth, and then you've got a great time lapse of the Earth coming back. Nope. Nothing. The closest they got, they called it Earthrise. So if you want to have fun on YouTube, look up JAXA Earthrise, and you'll see this blurry blue marble thing coming up over the moon horizon, and they got it going for a little bit, and you're thinking, let's keep going with this, and they don't.
And if you think about it, all the probes they've sent out to Mars and Saturn and Jupiter and all that, like the Galileo, there's never a camera pointing at Earth as it's leaving the atmosphere and leaving Earth.
No, NASA has gotten so beat up recently, and I found a website just this morning that I didn't even know existed. And again, you can look it up. It's a wiki. It's a fairly new wiki site, and it's literally called Third Party Confirmation of Apollo Missions. Basically, it's NASA. So few people can believe NASA at this point that they've created an entirely separate web page or separate wiki entry for independent agencies who have supposedly confirmed the moon landings, and you should read through it. It's amazing. It's horrible.
Yeah, we'll link to it. We'll definitely link to it.
Yeah, it's
on your Clue 11, which you just linked to me or told me about. Did you finish that just today, or?
I just finished it like an hour ago. And, and shot it up there, and I've got inspired from the. Speaking of astronauts, I got inspired from that 2004 documentary, When Astronauts Go Wild, which, a lot of people have forgotten about, or, just they weren't around when it came out. Did you ever watch it, When Astronauts Go Wild?
I watched some of it.
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
I thought he was kind of rude.
He is rude.
He's real rude. But he could have been nicer to him. But I will say this. I think that a lot of those astronauts, if not all, have been Clockwork Oranged, mind controlled.
Oh, sure.
And,
I have no doubt.
With the serum and, I think, that's my opinion.
Yeah. I hear you. For me, though, I went down the road of because, when you watch it from beginning to end, and again, I don't necessarily recommend it because the interviewer is kind of a jerk. But when they wouldn't touch, when he asked him to swear on the Bible, it bugged me back then. I was going, why would they care? Are they like devout Christians? Are they all, I heard, the rumors about, the astronauts being inducted into the Masonic program before they become, astronauts. But why wouldn't you touch the Bible? Why wouldn't you, why would you not just lie under oath? It doesn't make any difference. And so I went down the road, well, if it's an enclosed system, would you lie under oath? I mean, because at that point, you don't know because, it solidifies, the creator thing. And it was just so strange to watch them do this because, they've been in interviews for years and years and never had a problem talking. But, and again, it wasn't even the book. That's the scary part. It wasn't the book itself. It was the idea. They could have just held their hand up, like you do sometimes you see in congressional hearings, and that should have been just fine, but they didn't do it. So.
Hey, Mark, hold on. If there are any phone calls, we're taking phone calls now. So, if anyone wants to Skype in or what's the number here to CJ Mars, call in at CJ Mars. Looking for the number. I should be prepared. I'm not exactly prepared. I'm unprepared. 716-745-4266 and give us a call, and Mark or I will answer any questions, and we'd love to hear from you. But speaking of Freemasons, Mark, you know that Tom Hanks and Ron Howard had to become Freemasons in order to do the Apollo 13 movie. I found that interesting.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Well, they're big. They're the Freemasons' big thing, and I'm not gonna harp on them too much because unfortunately there's too many of them in my family. But not me, but others. But they're big into the whole secrecy thing. That's, it's really pounded into them that, it's all about secrecy. And so when I had heard the rumors that, all astronauts have to become Masons before they do it, of course, it's like, you're not going to say anything, under the penalty of horrible death. But,
not just Masons, but, if you worked for the railroad, you had to be Freemason.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
And did you know that because they had so many black porters, or they wanted to hire, black, black employees, that they had to create a separate lodge for black people? No, that still exists today. Yes.
It's in all factions.
It's called the Frederick Prince Lodge or something like
that. They were very clever that way, where they created separate lodges for just about every faction. So that way, you keep tabs on them, but they wouldn't be part of the main group, and, so there's, at least 5 or 6 different women's groups and, there's Jewish groups and, you name it, there's a group for it.
But I wonder if that still applies today. Like you have to be a Mason to work for the railroads.
Oh, I don't know about the railroads. I don't know why it would be the railroads today. Maybe back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, yeah.
When they were trailblazing and doing a lot of stuff when the railroads used to be super powerful back then. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Hard to say. But anywho, so that was clue 11. Everything, seemed to pan out.
How long did it take you to make those videos? I mean, they're really really well done,
Well, thank you. I've got it kind of down to a system now to where I've really got to be inspired by something. Something's got to click. And so I'll usually know the night before what the narrative's going to be. And, I'll be like going to sleep, kind of dozing off going, yeah, that's what I'll say, and nod off. And so then I'll wake up, and as I'm taking a shower, I'm going, okay, I know exactly how we're going to play this out. And, I do I write the script first. Then I do it all in Windows Live Movie Maker. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but it works pretty well. Then I throw the slides in and then record the audio, throw the audio on top of the slides, and then kind of fit it in. And I can usually do one in, less than 8 hours.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey, remember I was telling you about the Book of Enoch in that box that was possibly found in France and then skirted to the Vatican?
Yeah.
Well, to add to that, this is what Jay Widener speculated. I like to quote him, that box might have been, after World War II, might have been taken to the Pentagon. And the Pentagon is actually, if you think about it, it's an inverted pentagram.
Interesting.
So that box could be literally taken there, and those things could be let out, let's say, and be kept in the confines of that building. And one of the reasons for 9/11 for that building to be pierced was to let them out.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, there seems to be quite a bit of ritual, there's multiple layers, things don't just happen. Not only are things destroyed, but there's rituals on top of that, and there's numerology on top of that. But yeah, I could see that. Sure.
And Captain Morgan was killed on September 11th.
Which Captain Morgan?
The original Captain Morgan who wrote the book. He was a Mason himself. He exposed their rituals in a book pamphlet. I
don't think I read that one. And I've read quite a few of those.
Yeah, they kidnapped him, and then they brought him from I'm not sure, like Virginia, and then they brought him all the way to Canada.
Yeah. In
like less than 24 hours, and then the Canadians wouldn't, the Canadian Masons didn't want to kill him, so they took him back to back to New York, and then they threw him in either a river or a lake in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And they murdered him. Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Well, remember, that's when the Freemasons, the Masonic lodges, almost went under because they got exposed.
Yeah. Yeah. Before they were still, doing their civil, they were still fighting between themselves. What year was that, or approximately?
I got to look that up. It was Captain William Morgan.
Was that before the Civil War?
Yes.
Okay.
Before the Civil War.
Yeah. Everything changed, once the whole Albert Pike thing came into effect, which is a fascinating.
Let's get into that. What do you think about? Do you think, because the way I see it, he was a Satanist, right?
Well, there's more to it than that. He was an interesting guy. He's really strange. He's an enigma. Yeah. I mean, if you go to the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C.
The dream he had was something that the three wars, they've planned out the three wars. He had a dream of these three wars, and the dream was, you make it happen.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah. And there's even more to it than that. The one, of course, he's the only Confederate general ever to be buried in Arlington Cemetery.
And he has a statue, and not only that, but there's a statue of him in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah. And at the House of the Temple, the big Masonic lodge in the United States, he's got an entire wing dedicated to him.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting, you want to hear a fun little story? You ever heard of the Bracelet of Power?
No.
Oh, it's great. It's a great little thing.
See, you learn something new every day. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's this. Okay, so let me. So if for those of you out there who don't know, what the Masons really back, their big guy, like everyone's got, there's Muhammad and there's Moses and there's, Jesus Christ, and there's, every group's got their lead guy that they pay a lot of attention to. And for the Masons, it's Solomon. And Solomon was, a very, the richest man apparently ever to live, and, had so much gold, that silver was worthless and all this stuff. But what was interesting was there was a book about Solomon that was never published called The Testament of Solomon. Not the Songs of Solomon that's actually canonized in the Bible, but there's actually one that was not canonized, kind of like the Book of Enoch, called The Testament of Solomon. And the reason why they did not publish it, and people, you can download this, it's up on the internet, it's real easy to get, is because literally it is like all he did was, the story goes that he was given a ring, and I know it only as the Ring of Power. And, people think
to control the demons, right?
To control the demons. And the Testament of Solomon was really just a demon interview process. That's all the whole thing was. So when you go into, he captured one demon. The first one was named Ornias, and he led, the rest of them to him. And he'd go through these demons, and he'd say, okay, who are you? Basically, what's your power? What's your weakness? Okay, you're gonna be doing brickwork. He assigned them, to just manual labor for the most of them, right? And that's really what the entire Testament of Solomon was. Now, what was interesting though was the ring itself. And people think that Lord of the Rings, remember, nothing's by accident. They think Lord of the Rings is the most successful trilogy of all time, and a great story, and the oldest. It spawned so many fantasy things. They think the Ring of Power was just a story. It was not. It was absolutely based off this ring, the Solomon's ring. Now, what's interesting about that ring, if you believe the story, is that, and I'll get to how it ties into Albert Pike in a second here, but if you believe that story, the initial story about Solomon is that he got it from an angel, right? An angel gave him. Right. I can't remember which one it was, if it was Michael or Gabriel or whoever it was. But for me, I think that's a bunch of crap, because I think that ring was given to him by his father. And for those of you who know your history, Solomon's father was
David,
King David, who is also, when people look at the Jewish flag, it is the Star of David, and that is the same guy. And it's also the same guy from David and
Goliath.
And if people think that David beat Goliath with just a frickin' slingshot, you got another thing coming. I think the ring was given to David first, and he used it to his benefit. But anyway, so imagine if David had the ring, then he gave it to Solomon, and then Solomon used it, summon up demons, whereas David used it for other purposes. And then afterwards, when the temple was sacked, beforehand, he hid all his treasure, and the ring was buried deep beneath it. And the Catholic Church knew this eventually, and sent the Knights Templar to set up shop and start digging there.
And they found it. They found the treasure, or they found something.
They found something. Now, they obviously found the treasure. That I have no doubt. But the legend goes that they found the first thing the Vatican wanted was the ring. They were looking for the ring, and then it kind of just disappeared from history, right? Oh, and these demons, by the way, weren't your normal red, scaly, bifurcated tail carrying a hay fork, type of thing. These were really the equivalent of what you know as jinn, or the modern term is genie, right? So they were blue and very, very powerful. So the Catholic Church supposedly acquired the ring, and then it falls out of history. Again, like the Ring of Power and the Lord of the Rings, myth turns to, legend, blah, blah, blah. So sometime later, Albert Pike, becomes the most powerful, out of the blue, becomes the most powerful Mason in the world. He knights the houses, the Knights Templar and the Priory of Sion, the Knights Templar being really more French and the Priory of Sion being more English. And they were at odds, just butting heads for centuries. People think, the French and the English were fighting because of power. No, it wasn't just because of that. It was because of, the two Masonic houses that were beating the crap out of each other. And do we have to go to commercial or something?
No. Keep going.
Okay. So so Albert Pike, out of nowhere, who apparently can speak dead languages and all this stuff, he was very mystical. He was immediately, made, head of both houses. He united the houses and became, the grand poobah of all Masons. But there was this little story about him that he had a bracelet of power that could summon demons, summon interdimensional beings. And I was going, well, that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? And then I thought, that's pretty clever, and that's what I would have done too. Because if you got something like that, if you have the Ring of Power, what's the best way to make sure it doesn't get stolen from you? You tell somebody, when somebody asks, hey, how are you summoning demons? You say, oh, well, it's this bracelet. Because that way, if they come at you, if they try to betray you, they're going after the bracelet. It was brilliant in my opinion. So I think the Ring of Power, I think Solomon's ring actually made it back to Albert Pike. And he was the one that wrote the what's now known as the Masonic Bible, Morals and Dogma, which you can pick up on eBay for about $10.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a couple copies myself. But they kept following him even then. And Albert Pike really, went after as well. And it's like, okay, why would you follow this guy? And I think they were really following him because out of all the leaders, he was one of the few people with a supernatural object. Christianity always looks for the Holy Grail, and Judaism looks for the Ark of the Covenant. The Masons, one of their big super secrets is the ring. It's the Ring of Power, and nobody knows where it is right now because after Albert Pike, no one ever talked about any weird summoning of anything, and that was 150 years ago. So where the ring is now, boy, I'd love to find out, because it's one of those things. If it was made public, there isn't an army in the world. That old movie story. There isn't an army in the world that wouldn't go after it.
Nobody's talking. I mean,
no, or maybe you can't wear it. Maybe it can only be worn by a certain person, and maybe that's why when the Catholic Church had it, that they couldn't there was nobody that maybe nobody was worthy of wearing the ring, but Albert Pike apparently could, and of course he wasted it. If you read his backstories, they're great. He just went out into the woods. You read those stories, like he would just take wagons and wagons of food and wine and women and just go into the forest and throw these knockout parties that would last for weeks. And he didn't have a care in the world. Like he had like an unlimited spending account. Nobody knew where it came from. And he could do basically anything he wanted. And oh, by the way, while he was doing that, he also wrote what's now known as the Masonic Bible and united the houses. So it was super interesting.
Wow,
anyway.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great little thing. Yeah. So for me, every time I see Lord of the Rings, because I keep looking, I was going, that's a great story. But once I heard of the Ring of Power, it's like, oh, I get you. I see what you're doing there. So.
And when Frodo puts the ring on, he disappears into the astral plane or whatever.
Yeah, and he can see demons.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
The ring wraiths. Yeah.
The ring wraiths. He could see them, and everyone wanted the ring. That was the big thing. Everyone wanted the ring, and Solomon had it, and and apparently he was so intimidating and he was so unquestioned as a leader that the legend goes that when he died on the throne, he was sitting there like for 5 days before anyone even approached him to see if he was okay, because he was one of those guys you just didn't bother. But it's an interesting story, and I kind of dig it. And what I like to say is there's an old saying.
His funeral, supposedly it was completely in black. Everything was casket. Everything was draped in black, black.
That wouldn't surprise me. And then of course the stories of the treasure, which not the Da Vinci Code, but what were those Mason movies with Nicolas Cage? National Treasure.
National Treasure.
Yeah. The story goes that the Knights Templar, after they delivered the ring to the church, they found, they dug and they found, all the gold, and they became immediately, look at this up. There's some good stuff on this. They immediately became one of the most powerful groups ever, out of nowhere. But they were doing the whole, that Shakespeare saying with, he doth protest too much. You look up the Knights Templar and their banner, you see those, the coat of arms, it's a shield, or it's a lion on something, and their coat of arms, I couldn't make this up if I tried, was two men riding on the same horse. You're going, why would they do that? And it's like, well, because they were trying to give the impression to people that they were poor. They couldn't afford They couldn't afford two horses. So it's like, oh yeah, we're riding on the same horse because we're poor. And it's like, really, you're going out, it's like, if you say that too much, people aren't going to believe you. And then, I think within a couple of years, they bought the entire island of Cyprus for no apparent reason. Nobody knew where the money came from. And then the story goes, why the French and the English started up their big wars was, that the French were going to move the gold, and the English spies were just a little bit more clever than they were. And they intercepted the ships, and they shipped it all up to London. And that's how, people, there's a question out there.
You think that when, Prince Philip issued that decree to go get the gold, their treasure, and it was gone, you think it went to England?
It went north somewhere.
I think, my take was that they split it up into three, and one, because they had ships, remember? They had they had boats.
Yeah.
And I think they split into three, and one group went to Scotland, one group went to Switzerland, and the other group went to maybe Oak Island or
Oh, right, the Oak Island thing.
Yeah. I don't,
Boy, I'd love to get some decent technology and dig into that hole and find out if it literally was just like a Chinese finger trap. There was nothing down there. It was just made to screw with people. But the point I was getting at was, the British pound is still the most powerful currency in the world, and no one really has any explanation for it because their exports are minimal at best. They did a little bit of offshore oil, but it was mostly in banking. But the story is they've got the gold. They've got or somebody up there has a chunk of Solomon's gold. That was what I heard.
And do you think during World War II that gold was moved?
Well, if it was moved, you mean moved to protect it from?
Moved here.
Temporarily, I could see that because the Germans were really, really close to pulling that whole thing off. That's a whole nother side thing. I talked about that in one video, which I don't necessarily recommend that people watch because it's kind of tough to watch because I take the side of the greater good. And that was, the Germany. Most people don't know that Germany. That war was pretty much over, and hadn't Pearl Harbor been attacked, the Germans had the whole thing. It was done. And so I said, would you be willing to sacrifice, a couple thousand Navy personnel, in order to save the world? Tough call. Kind of goes into that swordfish movie argument. But anyway.
Wow. I don't think we're going to be getting any calls, but,
that's okay. Whatever you want to talk about.
I was wondering, is there anything else you want to talk about topically or keep going with the flat earth or?
Dealer's choice. What's on your mind?
We got 30 more, 20 more minutes. I don't know. Let's see. Oh yeah, I have about the flat. Let's stick to the flat earth because.
Sure. It seems to be trending right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. Why is it that Alaska and the Antarctic there's a few months where it's completely dark 24/7?
Yeah.
I always thought that was odd.
Well, if you're talking about the round Earth, then
yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. If the Earth is round the way they say, then I always said to myself, because I always wanted to go to Alaska, and I watched that. I was fascinated with that show Northern Exposure, and I would watch shows on Alaska, and where they go,
Yeah, that was shot in eastern
Seattle.
Washington.
Washington. Yeah. But no, in that show they talk about how for a few months it would be light 24/7, and then a few months it would be completely dark, no sun.
Yep.
And I thought, well, how is that possible?
If you go with the globe model, then then it's a tilt. It's tilted, and as it's rotating around the sun.
Yeah, but even if it's tilted, it would still, you would think it's some sunlight.
Something. Again, I don't believe the globe, but I'll go with this. If it's a globe, and again, everything's easier on a flat model. If it's a globe, then if it's tilted far enough, and I can't remember the degrees in front of me, you'll have to get some geography nerd to throw that one out. Then you could pull it off. But if it's a flat model, if it's an enclosed model, you can just do anything you want, and simulate it. Now, in a flat model, people say, well, why would you want to simulate the globe in certain aspects? And I've been, because people are throwing that at me. What about the Coriolis effect? Where the stars turn, counter the direction. I can't remember if it's clockwise or counterclockwise. And I will remember that before it's over. Or the drains, how the drains can circle, in different directions in the southern hemisphere.
Right. The Coriolis effect. What is it called?
Yeah. Coriolis effect. Yeah.
Right.
And you got to remember, from a builder's standpoint, you want it eventually to be a globe from a civilization point of view. And people, because people are saying, well, it was strictly the authority. It was strictly the power elite that, created the globe model. I disagree. Because from a builder point of view, from an enclosed system point of view, you'd also want it to be a globe model. Maybe not as long as it's gone now, which is, what I kind of dug into in Clue 11. But you want it to be there because it keeps people, while the technology is ramping up, and there was quite a bit of technology, from the 1800s until the 1950s and 1960s. When you do that, it keeps people from running to the fence because there is no fence to run to. because once you get the globe model in there, what you're basically telling people is, well, you can run around the world all you want. You're never getting out of here. As opposed to, oh, hey, by the way, there's a fence over there, but don't go near it. One of those things. So, and then I say, okay, then in 1956, when technology finally reached it, that's when the power elite decided, well, we're going to, regardless of what their plans were, we're going to extend this as long as we can. Partially for selfish reasons, part of it, could have been parental supervision, that sort of argument. It's like, well, it's better for the people if we don't tell them.
I know what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
When you look at the powers that be, they're digging, like in Colorado, the airport in Colorado. It's got a huge underground subterranean. I mean, there's even a little destroyer boat. Did you see the pictures of that? There's a boat in there in a dry dock.
That's weird because I've been there many times. That's my airport. That's the one I go to.
Oh, okay, yeah. Not only that, but I mean, do they think there's going to be an enormous flood and they're going to ride it out underground? And
the deep underground bunker scenario, which quite a few people have asked me, and let's put it this way: if something was really bad, was eventually, sooner or later, the power elite. People say, well, why would you build these deep underground bunkers? You build them if you can afford it, and most of the time they can. And you build them just in case. Just in case, maybe you can trust, who the builders in question. Maybe you can't. Maybe you found evidence of, the floods, that have wiped out things in the past. Maybe you haven't. But you're going to try to write it out somewhere. And apparently building some arcs on a mountain like the 2012 movie scenario just wasn't going to cut it. So, everyone decided to go deep, and, that's an iffy proposition. The old saying, military saying, a cave is a grave is
a tomb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if there's an earthquake and,
But yeah, as far as the Denver airport, people that they have any, doubts about what was built under there, do not doubt it. I mean, it was built out in the middle of nowhere. Way outside the city. You could, Stapleton Airport, most people don't understand, the old Denver airport was right in the middle of the city. And this airport was built in the middle of nowhere, tons of contractors out there that signed non-disclosure agreements. People will not talk about what they built under there. The excavation, they dug way too much dirt. There's piles of dirt. There's small mountains of dirt out there.
Yeah.
That
and they keep digging, right? I mean, they're not.
It's not. Yeah, they're gonna. Yeah, why not? Because there's nobody's living out there. There's some hotels, within. I think the closest hotel. Well, there's some rental car places, of course. Those came naturally, but the closest hotels were, I think, 6-7 miles away, something like that. So it's it's a great, and it's centrally located, and again, not coincidentally, it's in the center of the country. The CIA moved its base of, its domestic operations from Virginia to Denver just a few years ago, permanently. Little moves like that. Plus, you've got NORAD.
They say that all of Washington D.C.'s departments are located in Atlanta and Denver.
Yeah, Atlanta's a weird one, isn't it? Because you think that's like, why would you do Atlanta?
Well, the Denver airport. Have you ever been to the Denver airport?
Yeah,
it's enormous.
Yeah, it's monstrous. It's
Why is it that big?
Also true. It is a huge airport. I used to joke because I used to do business travel out of here, and people, I'd love it because I'd come home and I'd see people, getting off because they'd be connecting through Denver. And in most airports, you just get, connect and walk for like 5-10 minutes, and you get to your other gate. But man, if it's the Denver airport and you're like, from section A to section C, you better pack a lunch because you're not going to make it if it's going to be close. And Denver airport's monstrous. The tram system's big. The story that, the elevators can go further down, with a special key. I like those. Plus they're very big elevators on top of it. It's an interesting place, and, not exactly spooky, but it's, it rings of a lot of,
what about that, demonic blue horse statue?
Oh, well, that's kind of a weird one.
That killed its, creator.
Yeah, that part I think is weirder than the statue because, the Broncos fans are, are pretty rabid. So it had to be somewhat
But
masculine.
it's a blue horse
Yeah.
with red demon eyes.
Yeah, they probably could have gone with blue. I don't know what the contrast thing was. But if you want, the most interesting story, of course, about the airport, and again, you can look at the plaque. They don't hide it. It's down
The
at
New World Order, New World Order Airport, yeah.
New World Airport, which was built, financed, mostly by the Masons. They list all the lodge stuff there. And again, they don't, you can look up the screenshots. And
what's with the gargoyles? Did you see the gargoyles?
Oh, yeah, the gargoyles in the suitcases.
Yeah.
I do not know. I don't think those are as interesting as those weird paintings, that are around the place. It's not exactly modern art. It's weird. It's not even symbolism. You can recognize everything that's in the paintings, where groups of children, there seems to be some apocalyptic scenes here and there. They're not happy paintings. If you get a chance, also Google Denver Airport wall murals, and you'll find some.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's with the Darth Vader looking guy in a green. He's wearing like a mask.
Oh yeah, the old World War One gas
with a
mask.
Nazi kind of helmet, and he's got a machine gun in one hand and a saber in the other, and there are dead children. I mean, it's like bizarre.
Yeah, there's one. There's like one.
The creator of that painting is a South American. And he's been contacted and harassed, basically saying, he's a New World Order show. And he said, he was saying, I'm not, it's a beautiful painting, but I wonder,
Yeah. But it's been around for years. It was built, actually the same year I first got here. When I flew in for the interview here for the video game job years ago, Stapleton was still around. I flew into Stapleton. And then when I came back to relocate, I flew into to Denver International, so it's been around quite a few years. But when it was first built, I'm not kidding you, it was stark. There was nothing, literally nothing out there. And everyone local complained because you literally, like from the city of Denver, there was nothing between you and that airport. There was like just 12 miles of just fields. And again, now there's a few hotels here and there, but it's way out there. It's a perfect place. Yeah, if something really bad happened and you want to relocate people inland, that's the place. Absolutely. There's it's away from the mountains far enough. It's not near any water sources, but it's still interesting. So
they have a plan. And it doesn't include us.
Yeah. They've got the tickets, but again,
just like when you see those ghost cities in China.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, they'll say, oh yeah, it was just poor economic planning and growth development planning. That's
nobody could be that retarded though. Come on.
No, not on that scale. That is. I mean,
to build literally like cities.
Yeah,
with condominiums. I mean, entire cities with stadiums and parks and stores.
Yeah,
and it looks like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, you've got just a few thousand people living in a city that can hold 1 million.
And what they do is there are I feel so sorry for these people, the Chinese people that are poor, right?
Yeah.
That were living there in their kind of shanties.
Yeah.
They were getting displaced, forced to move, and it's not like they were giving them better housing. They were just telling them, get out.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't fair, but again, the cities themselves, because there wasn't just one. There was a whole bunch of them. So what was, you got to question the purpose. It's like, why? It's almost like they're building backup cities. That sounds bizarre because we'd never do it here because you couldn't get away with it. No one would approve it.
But backup cities for who?
Exactly. Backup cities for who? Why are you building entire empty cities that could house millions of people?
And what's happening is that they're building this, and Chinese construction, I hate this, is not the best.
No.
After a few years, the malls, even the brand new malls, because they're not being taken care of, they're getting dilapidated. They're like crumbling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You don't maintain a building.
Yeah.
So you're building this brand new structure, whatever it is, and they're not maintaining it.
Yeah.
So they're not, painting it and, doing basic maintenance cycles.
No.
So
It's one of those weird little country, or alternate non-U.S. based mysteries that we're not going to find out for a while, and may never find out the entire purpose, because by the time we find out, it may be.
And did you see that thing in the desert, in the Gobi Desert? They have some kind of weird pattern that's enormous. I mean, it's bigger than a small city.
No,
It's like-
what's
I'll find it and send it to you. No one knows. No one seems to know what it is.
Is it structures, or is it just markers in sand?
It's like a weird a pattern in the sand, but
Weird.
it's got like metallic. It looks. No one knows what it is. Everyone's
Oh,
speculating.
Yeah,
What is
send that to me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Which reminds me, by the way, I think I figured out a way to prove the flat Earth thing actually fairly cheaply. But I don't want to discuss it right now, because I'm still working out the details, and I'm a little leery, because I'm afraid what might happen there is the same thing that how crop circles got diffused all those years ago, where and I completely believe in crop circles. You see them, and some of these things people don't understand. It's like some of those drawings out there I couldn't do with Photoshop in 3 or 4 days. Even on my computer, I don't think I could draw it. And you're telling me people went out at night and did this? I mean, anyone who has any doubts on that, look up the Milk Hill crop circle. It is gorgeous. It is, and it covers 500,000 square feet, and it's over uneven terrain. So from one end, you cannot see the other end because it slopes down. And what people don't realize, and even though I used to be a fan of Ancient Aliens, I'm not so much anymore, but there was this one lady who said it was one of the greatest pieces of disinfo that's ever been done, and that was, whenever you say, oh, well, especially in England, you say, well, crop circles, and they'll always bring out these two guys, these two guys in their mid-50s. I think they're dead now. And they said, oh, yeah, these two guys admitted to it.
Right.
And
you could do a simple crop circle. Circle. But not these really elaborate ones, that.
No,
right.
but these two guys are always mentioned, and most people don't understand the backstory. And I remember the backstory vividly, because I was just out of college when this story came out. And what happened was a British newspaper was offering a cash reward, instant cash reward for anyone that could go out and produce a crop circle, right? And these two guys, it's like almost like they literally found them in a bar, who probably read this, said, hey, let's go out with some boards and string and, make a crop circle. And they got paid. Do you know how much the paper paid them?
No.
50,000 pounds.
Wow. That's $100,000.
No, 75.
Wow.
75 grand. But that's 75 grand American, and that's in the early 90s. And I was, because I remember thinking, I was going, man, I will fly over there and make some frickin' crop circles, and, hopefully they won't catch on that, I don't live there. But that single piece of information, that single little thing there, diffused almost all the crop circle speculation at that point, because up until that point, it was gaining a lot of traction. And people were talking about it, and then these two guys, and it's like, oh, they obviously made every crop circle in England, and Spain and every other country, and it's like, really?
Well, what do you think the purpose is of them? I mean, is it a warning? Is it information telling us something?
Is it a logo? Is it corporate branding from the builder's standpoint that we just don't know? I don't know, but if you want to look up something interesting, you could Google image this. It's fun. I think I've still got it on mine, but there's something that I downloaded. I downloaded a few crop circles, but there's something that most people don't even know about, and that's called crop writing. You want to look up some scary frickin' pics. Look up something. It was in Russia, in a city called Krasnodar. That sounds like a sci-fi name, but it's true. Krasnodor. Like Modor, so Krasnodar. And you will see these pictures of this giant field that looked like somebody had done a printer job on it. Like it's like, okay, let's do three pages portrait on this field. And it's this weird writing, that I don't even know if it's left to right or right to left, but it's just massive. And you can see the scale, because you'll see some of the pictures where the cars are, because it all of a sudden showed up one morning. And it wasn't like in the middle of the field like it was in England. It was literally right off this main highway. And people just, the next morning they come out there and they're looking, and it is the most magnificent thing you've ever seen. And some of the helicopter and aerial shots, you look at the scope of this thing, you're going, I don't care who you have, if you're trying to fake this.
Wait, spell it for the audience. Spell it, Krasnodar.
Kras.
A-S.
N as in Nancy, O-D-O-R. Krasnodar. Krasnodar crop circle or crop writing or something. And if you don't, I can send you the pictures too if you can't find them. But it is something to see. But the point here is, one, it's not in England. It's in Russia, and it wasn't circles. It was text, and it was massive. I couldn't. You give me a team of 10 guys and maybe a week, maybe. Straight. Maybe you could come up with something like this, but overnight, it can't be done, and nobody talks about it. Things get filtered out of Russia. Thank God for the internet that they have access to some of our systems. But
wow, did anyone decipher it? I'm looking at it now.
No, it's a language that's way beyond us. It's not hieroglyphs. It's not. It seems like it's some sort of longhand. There doesn't seem to be, much in the way of shapes. It looks almost like, just a regular formal writing style, but it is something to see. So
cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's people don't talk about it. So when people bring up crop circles and they say, "Oh yeah, crop circles is, total bunk," I'm going, fine. How about crop writing? How about in a country that doesn't even care about crop circles? And again, when you see the cars parked on the side of the road next to this thing, you just go, they're looking at it because from their point of view, they're just losing it. So.
Well, in Siberia that they talk about that there's in the bog,
Yeah.
They talk about that there's these giant, what people call kettle pots, these giant kettle pots that raise out of the ground.
Yeah,
and discharge like a energy bolt.
Yeah.
Sink back down.
The
and the natives stay out of that area.
Well, did you see the guy that went in it? And supposedly there's some radiation concerns. Like these were like leftover gun emplacements.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
yeah. That's a fascinating story. Along those lines, if you ever want to read a interesting. In fact, I got to revisit it eventually. An interesting UFO thing, about ancient technology and stuff like that. Read up on. You ever heard of a guy named M.K. Jessup? Jessup. It's a fascinating story. We got a little time, so we got how many minutes we got left?
Less than 8, about 6 minutes.
Okay, I can do this story in that.
Yeah, real quick.
It was a book written. It was basically an alien, or like a kind of a weird alien technology book written by a guy back in in the 50s. And what happened was this book was sent to I think an Air Force colonel or something to that effect. And what was interesting was, so if you look up M.K. Jessup and then look up, because you can download it in PDF, it's called the M.K. Jessup annotated version, which means that somebody before this colonel got this book, the book seemed to have changed hands through different people, and they made different notes inside the pages of basically they were critiquing this professor's work on his explanation of the UFO. The official book was titled The Case for the UFO, and it seemed like somebody had gotten a hold of this book, wrote their critique of it in the notes, handed it off to another guy. They wrote the critique in the notes, handed it off to a third guy, and wrote the critique in the notes. And then it finally got to this Air Force colonel. And you're thinking, well, that's kind of interesting. What was interesting, though, was what they were writing. They were writing it from the perspective like they were critiquing from the outside, meaning they were the guys in the spaceships, saying, "Oh yeah, he got this right. This is pretty good." Like they were doing the quintessential. Remember the day the time stood still movie?
Yeah.
Where the alien walks into the professor's lab and starts messing with his chalkboard.
And he solves the problems and says,
"Here you go."
Yeah.
And that's what these guys were doing. They were listing all this stuff and they were using slang, science fiction slang that didn't even exist that far back. back in that year, and weird little things, and they were talking about how things happen, and weapon technology and ship propulsion technology, and it was all in the notes. And so what happened was this colonel, because he didn't know what to make of it, he had a military printing company print up the entire thing with the annotations, kind of in structured, and he basically retranscribed the entire book and sent it out to a few people, and the printing company leaked a few out, because UFO stuff in the 70s and early 80s was still pretty limited, and people got a hold of this thing, and it is a heck of a read if you get a chance, because you're reading through the annotations. The book is okay, but when you read through the annotations, you're looking at this going, wow, it was really neat to see. So anyway, I gotta read that.
Yeah.
And if you can't find it, it's easy. There's a PDF out there. It's the M.K. Jessup Case for the UFO annotated edition, and it's a great...
I really do believe that there were people, let's say even 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, that were they had technology like flying saucers and computers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They were hidden. They remained hidden, Yeah. And for good or bad, they've been guiding humanity. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe they're even, maybe there are good parts of them and bad parts of them, They could be factions,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And the factions, again, if you ever want to look up something cool, and we're running out of time, but I'll tell you this one. I told you about the Nuremberg event, right? Did I tell you that one?
No.
Okay, last one.
Well, we're going to have to do another show, Mark, because we're...
all right, no worries.
We'll do another show.
Okay.
Are you game for another show?
Sure.
Great,
sure.
yeah.
Why not? I'm having so much fun with this.
Listen, yeah, I know. This is great talking to you. Listen, just give your information one more time, and
okay.
And I'll try out, and
Flat Earth clues. You can either Google it or YouTube it. Either way, you'll find it. You don't even have to look me up. But my name is Mark Sargent, Sargent. And I'm just kind of getting the word out there that the world may not be what you think it is, and I think I found quite a bit of evidence to support it. So, check it out. If you don't like it, hey, cool. Live on a globe. You'll probably be perfectly happy. But there'll be less shock if you combine to the other thing. So. Well,
listen, Mark, I want to thank you for being our guest tonight. I want to thank the CJ Mars audience. You guys have been great. As this audience grows, we'll take calls. No big deal that there weren't any calls. I want to personally thank Cindy Jean-Pierre, the owner of CJ Mars, for giving me a shot at my own show.
Okay.
And I want to I love everybody and thank everybody. And stay tuned next week for Sandy Hook. That's going to be the big show on the 26th, March 26th. Wolfgang Halbig and Professor James Tracy. And that's going to be a big show and a really good one. I'm really proud of that one. I'm proud of this one too. And as crazy as it sounds, great show,
Cool.
And I think we're almost out of here, right, Cindy? Okay, and we'll see you next week, folks. This is Parley. I'm your host, Mike Gray. My guest, Mark Sargent, and my producer, Cindy Jean-Pierre. Bye, all.